Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a head-to-head comparison that one of you guys wanted to see, and I've had a few other people want to see these shells through this choke combo as well, so we're kind of hitting multiple suggestions here, and I have a feeling that we're going to see two absolutely nasty patterns. We've already run these two shells head-to-head here recently through a different combination, but they're so close that I'm really curious to see how they perform through a setup like this. But for the shells I've got today, I brought out these two heavy hitters again. We've got some Kinetic Gunwerks shells and some Epic shells. Both of these are a 12 gauge, 3-inch, 2-ounce payload of TSS 9s. The Kinetic shells are moving about 1200 feet per second, and the Epic shells are about 1100 feet per second, and they are also part of the extreme pattern lineup as well from Epic. Both of these are absolute turkey hammers, no question about it. The specs are very similar on them as well, and pattern wise, like I just mentioned, we already have put these two shells head to head here recently. They are almost identical. However, the Epic shells are a decent little bit cheaper than what the Kinetic shells are currently. I think these are 80 bucks a box or something, and these are 115 or something about like that. So big difference. Neither of these are a cheap shell, that's for sure. You obviously don't have to run TSS in a 12 gauge, but if you do want to, either one of these is an absolute hammer for an option, but we'll see how they do head to head through today's setup. But as for our setup today, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it, and we're going to be running the Indian Creek 675 constriction. Epic does a lot of their testing and development with Indian Creek chokes. We've tested those shells through an Indian Creek 665 from one of my Remingtons, and it was an absolute hammer, but we have not tried them through the 675 in the Mossberg yet. This is an overboard barrel as well, so that'll be the first time we've tested an Epic load through the 835 as well. But both of those shells are so close in performance from what we've seen that we should have two absolute hammers, but maybe one will prefer the 675 and or the overbore a little better or a little worse than the other. We'll see what happens. Before today's test, we're running everything the same as usual. I've got two turkey targets side by side at 40 yards with the chronograph as well. So let's get you guys a view of those targets. We'll take both of our shots and see what we can get. I have no doubt that we're going to see two great patterns, but how similar are they going to be? And is there going to be one shell that prefers the Mossberg compared to the other shell or not? I don't know. So let's take some shots and see what kind of devastating results we can get. Alright, so quick look through our velocities before we check out our targets. We'll start with the Kinetic shells, which had a Bosch claim of 1200. They gave us 1186, so just a little bit below that claim. And our Epic shells had a claim of 1100, and we got 1120 out of those, so just a hair above our claim. Either way though, definitely within the ballpark of what we usually see, so nothing out of the usual here. Perfectly good velocity for both of them, but what kind of patterns did we get down there at 40? Let's check it out and see. Alright, so here we have both of our 40-yard patterns side by side, and just like I suspected, we see two absolute hammers here, no doubt about it, but I do think there potentially might be a winner here, or at least a little bit more of a winner compared to what we saw last time we tested these two exact shells head to head. On the left, we have our Kinetic shells. On the right, we have the Epic shells. Both of them are very dead turkeys at 40 yards, no question about it, but I think those Kinetic shells on the left might have a little bit more condensed of a pattern throughout the entire thing. So first we will start over here on the left with our Kinetic shells. We definitely favor to touch low. It's not uncommon for those Indian Creek chokes to favor a little bit low, but our Epic shell was not low, so that just goes to show why you test your setup with the shell you plan to hunt with, because they will change points of impact going from one shell to another as well. But yeah, you can see that nasty little ball of shot right down there on the bottom of that turkey target. That's nasty, no question about it. We may have favored low, but if we had that centered up a little bit, that bird may or may not have much of a head left at 40 yards even. So yeah, that is super impressive, no question about it. Pretty much everything there is within I would say about a 12, maybe 13-inch circle. And even going to the edges, we don't see a ton of flyers. Maybe a couple over there off the left, maybe a little bit of stuff along the very bottom edge, and a little bit at the top right up there. But really no major egregious flyers out of that pattern either. Everything is nice and condensed down. That's easily a 40+ yard capable pattern. These are a TSS 9, so any kind of distance past 40 yards where you would comfortably shoot a TSS 9, I'm sure that pattern's going to do the job. That's absolutely 45 and 50 yard capable as well. Once you get past there, it's personal preference as far as the terminal energy and penetration and stuff like that goes. But yep, nasty performance there. I do think this is probably going to be our winning combination by a little bit, but our Epic Shell also looks pretty nasty. And here is that Epic Shell. We favored a little bit higher on this one, although a touch to the left. I had the same point of aim on both of them, so yet again, different shells will impact different places. But yes, we absolutely still have a dead bird there at 40 yards, no question about it. Nice hot zone right there in front of his neck for a core. Know where that bird can move to and get through that. That's yet again 45, 50 yard capable. The core looks good. Might not be quite as many pellets in there as what we saw with the Kinetic shells, but I think where the difference numbers wise is going to show up in this pattern is around the edges. You can see kind of up there towards the top and a little bit over here off the left, we have a little bit of stuff starting to string out around there, maybe a little bit over there towards the right as well. It's nothing major. It's not necessarily blown all over the place. Everything is still pretty condensed there, but I think the edges are a little bit more sporadic than what we saw with the Kinetic shells. This version of these Epic shells is their extreme pattern lineup. It's meant to reduce flyers and stuff, is what they're intending for it to do anyway. 675 constriction, although it isn't a super tight choke, it is a lot of choke relative to the bore diameter of that 835, since it is an overboard shotgun to 10 gauge specs. So maybe it's a touch too much constriction right at the end of the barrel for what these shells are going to prefer. Either way, still completely devastating. I wouldn't hesitate to hunt it for sure, but let's pull both of these targets down. I'll finish counting some pellets and drawing some circles, and we'll see the exact number difference between these two. Okay, now we've got our turkey targets down and out of the way. I've drawn circles and counted all of the pellets, as well as I could anyway, especially with that Kinetic shell over there on the left. I think I probably used an entire Sharpie trying to draw as many circles as what we did here, because both of these are absolutely devastating. Again, Kinetic on the left, Epic on the right. Both of them are absolute hammers, but the numbers don't lie. Technically speaking, the Kinetic shell over there on the left is a tighter pattern. Now, neither one of these are bad patterns by any stretch of the imagination, and there may still be a little bit of personal preference here. These are different in price by quite a bit actually, looking at about 80 bucks with the Epic shell on the right, and I think up near the 120 mark or so with the Kinetic shells on the left. So are they worth that much extra? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on your personal preference, really. But first, we will look at this Kinetic shell, and yeah, just like I suspected, that is a nasty looking core area there. We have a 10 and 20 inch circle drawn. Within our 10 inch core, we have 448 pellets, is definitely what I was able to count, but some of those spots in the middle of the core are so many pellets in the same hole or so close to the same hole that it pretty much started just ripping slots in the paper. So it may be over 450 pellets in that core area there. That might be the most pellets we've ever had in a core area since I've actually started counting the pellets anyway with our testing. So that is nasty. Outside of that, with our 20 inch leeway circle, we pick up an additional 168 pellets, but you can see it's still pretty tight. Most everything is down there within the 10 inch core. We have a little bit of leeway, maybe to about the 12 or 13 inch mark, but the farther we get to the edges of that 20 inch, the thinner we get pretty quickly, and there's really not a whole lot to speak of outside of that. Few little pellets here and there, but that's it. So that pattern is absolutely deadly. It absolutely speaks for itself. For some people, that might be a little bit on the too tight side, but if you're a field hunter that wants maybe the best thing that they can get and is not afraid to spend the money to get a really high-end shell, that might be one of the options you're looking for. I definitely wouldn't hesitate to hunt it, but I would want my birds at least 35 plus yards, if not 40 plus, because that's going to be an absolute screamer at 20 yards or so. I can tell you that right now. So field combination, no question about it. And numbers wise, I think that technically is the tighter pattern. But now moving over here with our Epic shell, yet again, absolutely deadly results. no surprise here. Within the 10-inch core area, we have 388 pellets compared to the 448 we had with the Kinetic shells. Less pellets, you can see maybe not quite as hot of a dead center core area, but still completely devastating within that 10-inch ring, no question about it. Within our 20-inch ring, we pick up an additional 231 pellets. That is more than the 168 that we saw with the Kinetic shell, so that confirms that we may not have as tight of a core, and we have a little bit more broad of a spread, not by a ton, but our pellets are a little bit more spread out than what we saw with the Kinetic shells. And around the edges, we do have maybe a few more little splotchy bits around there. Still nothing major though, no major egregious flyers necessarily anywhere. So that is still a phenomenal pattern, don't get me wrong. And for the price difference here, for these being almost 40 bucks or so cheaper than the Kinetic shells per box, it's going to be hard to argue with that. Are the Kinetic shells worth the extra price? For me, probably not, at least how I hunt and what kind of patterns I like to see. But it's going to come down to personal preference again. Maybe if you want a little cheaper shell and don't mind having a very minimally broader pattern, I mean, it's not much, but it is a slight bit more open, then why not go with the epic shells here? Because a turkey is never going to know the difference between these two, within your typical hunting ranges anyway. So yeah, that's about what I expected to see overall comparing these two. This is a similar result to what we saw the last time we ran these two head to head. The Kinetic won it out numbers wise by a little bit, and pretty much the same story here. If you want a screamer and are not afraid to spend more money, the Kinetic over there on the left is probably what you're going to be looking for. If you want a little cheaper shell, but still want to use TSS in a 12 gauge, which you don't have to, but there's plenty of people that do want to, then why not go with the Epic over there on the right? They're cheaper and they pattern 95% as good, if not a little more, and the turkey is never going to know the difference inside of 50 yards, I can tell you that right now. So 2 hammers, no doubt about it. Mathematically, the Kinetic shells won, but other factors may very well come down to personal preference here as to which one of these you would much rather hunt with. And here are the 2 wads out of those shells. You've got your Kinetic over here on the left and your Epic over here on the right. Pretty much standard equipment for both of these. No major damage to them, especially not with this Kinetic load over here. The Epic wad does have maybe a little bit of a snag up here at the top. Those Indian Creek chokes are kind of known for kind of banging up the wad a little bit. You can see we have a little bit of tearing down here at the very bottom base of it as well. Still nothing I'm really too concerned about. A little bit of buffer down in there as well, but clearly it performed just fine. So that's nothing out of the normal overall. Both of these absolutely did their job. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about these 2 results? Clearly, we've got 2 absolute hammers on our hands here. We already knew that coming into it. I had no doubt in my mind we were going to see 2 fantastic patterns here, unless something went wildly wrong, which was very unlikely to happen. And clearly, they performed just about exactly how I expected they would. I wouldn't hesitate to run either one of these patterns. If you're just going off the numbers, the Kinetic shell probably squeaked it out again, but for the price difference and the performance capability and stuff of these Epic shells over here, in my opinion, that is still the better deal. For the vast majority of turkey hunters that would want to use a TSS and a 12 gauge, although you definitely don't need it, you don't have to run it, they're probably going to be perfectly fine with that. And who doesn't like saving a little bit of money? I mean, for that extra 40 bucks or so that you save if you buy a box of these over the Kinetic shells, maybe you could go buy another choke or something. I think the Avian X chokes are 45 bucks or so, and they're absolute hammers as well. So just something to think about there, really. Either way you look at it though, I wouldn't want to be a turkey standing down range of either one of these patterns, no question about it. But it's probably going to be personal preference on which one you prefer. Are you a numbers guy that's not afraid to spend money, or would you prefer to save a little bit of money and still have a nasty pattern that's 98% of the way there, really, compared to at least the Kinetic shells over here? But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you surprised one way or the other? Have you tested either of those Kinetic or Epic shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are either one of these a pattern or a combo you would hunt with? And if so, which one would you prefer? If you're the guy that's wanting to run TSS in a 12 gauge, are you going to spend the extra money to get the numbers in that Kinetic pattern? Or are you perfectly fine with the little bit cheaper Epic shells that are still giving you that deadly performance over there? Or are you just going to stick with your typical lead, much cheaper shells in 12 gauge? Nothing wrong with that either. But which option would you prefer here? And maybe what other stuff do you want to see when it comes to the epic shells or kinetic shells across the board? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it. But I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.